Muy buenas tardes a todos y bienvenidos a La Leyenda de lo Real, una nueva actividad basada en hechos reales en la que el cineasta Emir Kusturica, a quien conocerán por películas como Gato Negro y Gato Blanco o Underground, o su documental sobre Maradona o el mucho más reciente documental sobre Pepe Mujica, va a ser entrevistado por la curadora cinematográfica Diana Sánchez y por Matías Mosteirín, responsable de la productora KyS, a quien queremos agradecer también por su apoyo para lograr esta charla. Y bueno, pues lo dejamos, espero que se diviertan mucho.
Hello, everybody. I am very proud to introduce to Mr. Emir Kusturica, who is joining us today to this edition of Basado en Hechos Reales. Thank you, Emir, for being here. Emir Kusturica is for sure one of the greatest artists of our time. I think that only a few cinema authors have such an impressive, influential, and extraordinary filmography, which is already part of the human, cultural, and artistic legacy of our society and time. And Emir, you know that you are really beloved here in Argentina. Your work.
I love Argentina too.
Your work has been very influential to everybody here, of course, for to people who make cinema, but also in other fields, and in general, you have a devoted audience down here, and so I'm sure there's many people attending this conversation today. As you know, this is a festival which is focused on non-fiction, so we will easily target on your non-fictional work, which is, I think, I will say your 3 documentaries, because you have made Maradona by Kusturica, then El Pepe, A Life Supreme, but I would also mention Super Stories as a non-fictional work. And you have, if I'm not wrong, 2 biographies. One of them that I read twice, the second one because of this meeting, but you have another one, which is I have it around here. Well, but I think that even if we'll get there to your non-fictional work, it would be. I'm sure that the festival authorities will endorse us if we take this opportunity to discuss with you and go a little bit to your fictional work. I have to introduce also to Diana Sánchez, who is here with me, making this, joining us in this conversation. Thanks God, and if I have to think on your work, I was reviewing your filmography, which begins with. Do you remember Dolibel? When you were 26 years old, I think, something like that, and
25.
25.
Very young, yeah.
Very young, very young. And then when father was away on business, and your third movie is already Time of Gypsies, and then Arizona's Dream. What do you think there is some, in some way, a walk between some more intimate kind of storytelling that slowly tends to get more challenging and expressive and defiant with a bigger scale, that is that is something that you recognize in the evolution of your filmography from the beginning to underground, let's say?
You know, the point is, it's very intriguing when you say we are making a festival about non-fiction, and I don't think there is such a thing so pure. We have cinematography that started with in fact, documentaries were kind of parallel to the Hollywood explosion of films that were just influencing even Soviet Union. So when you say fiction and non-fiction, you know, it's today, I think, quite difficult to make distinction, because when you think about anything that is not just edited as they do today in the reality shows, in which they want us to get closer and closer to the possibility to be in Orwellian stage observed. So they are making us to get used to this. So when I was starting, when I was thinking about, I didn't know exactly what is not fiction, what it is, but I knew how to edit the movie. Once you start editing, even it's non-fiction, you are getting into the world of influence on the people. When you put two shots that have emotional strength together, you are already out of non-fictional world. So when you start making documentary, when we were doing Mujica, I must say that my idea was not very firm in the beginning, but at the end, when I was editing, I knew what I was going to do. So once you create your world, as they say in French, nouvelle vague, putting three shots together, you are making distance from reality. So reality is one thing, realism is another, and fiction is what we cover today. Document with the realism. Let me tell you, if you read a book today, like I did the other day, there is a big hit that was made 2-3 years ago, made a man who was called Uwe by Swedish writer. I must say that this film was extreme. This non-fiction, this piece of work as a literature was created in the incubator of somebody who was watching movies and movies. So now you have even cinema is striking back, coming back to the literature and influencing literature as if the skeleton of this novel was made in the laboratory of somebody who worked for Hollywood. So today it's very difficult, to my mind, to separate the things so firmly and to make the borderline in between what you call non-fiction. But I know your intention probably in the festival is to get into the seed of narratives. The seed of the narrative is a human, and a human carries all the contradictions and all the plus and minus, all the contrast, all the tenderness and everything that exists. So now the question is, especially now, when we have live streams, when we have Netflix, when we have cinema who is just almost collapsing on the field that was very known to all of us. So let's say literature is clearly non-fiction. In cinema, in the genre of documentary, I wouldn't be so sure making today such a distinction and being sure what is exactly documentary, what is on the other side. We know in Hollywood, big hits, this narrative is made in the labs of people who think how to impact people globally. In non-fiction, which is one of the problems of directors, I think. You know, when I was starting making movies, very often they used to say that film directors are stupid, but the writers are those who are educated, who have a connection to history, who have this direct way to express themselves. So let's say directors, much more like conductors in the symphonic orchestra, but non-fiction creation, in which I'm now much more than I was before, is, I would say, much more depending on one single person. It's not an orchestra that you conduct to a good end of what you have been thinking at the beginning. So the seed of the work is always non-fiction, but the outcome of this seed, as I just mentioned before, is more becoming that we are living in approximately all what we do is somehow fiction. So non-fiction against fiction. Reality contrary to realism. Realism as I would say, a style which is enough phantasmagoric, because once you put one sentence in order with the other, once your narrative is just looking like something, it could happen in reality, but the order of things which were made one after the other are just creating a fiction. Let's go back to
but that's an extraordinary approach, and we agree with that. And actually, the festival tries to explore exactly what you described, which is all that area of creation where the border is not at all clear, and where we can find every time more diverse forms of narrative, where for sure the border and what makes interesting is that the border is not clear. The
festival is good place for cinema, and festival, the word of festival is connected to festivity. You know, in ancient Greek time, they were celebrating a spring, sacrificing the most beautiful men in community in order to be able to have a better, a more fertile next year. So let's say red carpet is also from the ancient Greek mythology. It's Clytemnestra who was welcoming Agamemnon, who was coming from the war. And when I was walking down or up in the red carpets, I was always thinking why it's red. Red is because the Agamemnon was coming from the war, and it was in fact bloody way to come back home. So let's say festival and trying to look for this tiny line that separates or puts together different ways of expressing ourselves is very welcome, because like this we are going to be, because in the future we are going to be exposed more and more to these dilemmas. Because how can you, when I was learning how to make cinema, I was taught how to create a film which is going to make an impact on the people who are inside the cinema. Once you do the emotional way or wave that just gets the people, it's much stronger than when they see the movie alone. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that this, but you know, it's like also coming from deep, I would say, deep roots of religion and the culture, theater. Celebrating, as I said, spring, or burning up in Italy all the stuff in order to scare the witches around us. It comes to cinema, and it comes to the final stage of even conversations like this, which are quite unexpected for me. I was not expecting, in fact, that festivals are going to be going on online. But just one more thing, the idea of fiction and non-fiction is inside humanity. And the way we formalize this is just, you know, sometimes you have books that are absolute fiction, but they have a power of something that really happened. I must say that socially relevant movies and socially relevant books are 90% based on something that was really happening in the life. Mm-hmm. That's why when you say documentary has a strong influence on the people because it's recommended as something that was really happening. But the best novels, the best non-fiction, in fact, is also coming from something that was going on in the life and just changed in the routine or in the style of an author.
Yeah. Emir, something you said before was, I mean, a lot of this is very interesting, but just this interaction between literature and cinema and reading a book that feels like you can absolutely think that it's made into a movie. And I just think that's something so fascinating because I was reading a book, like a 19th century book, and I was like, wow, this author has seen a lot of plays. And now writers are seeing a lot of films, and you can see that inserted into their books. I found it really interesting when you're talking about the man called Ove in this way.
Yeah, called Ove. He was what I wanted to say, in fact, is that cinema became part of our life reality. So if you have been growing up with a cinema, it's a socially very relevant element of your life. Mm-hmm. And when you speak about fiction, a man who is called Ove is, in fact, original non-fiction that is absolutely impacted by the fiction. The way he speaks, the way he uses the economy of his non-fiction language is, in fact, deeply rooted inside something that is not a literal origin. It's origin of cinema. That's why I say it's good to discuss these issues because the contemporary life is really something that becomes extremely complicated or extremely easygoing, you know. You just click and you have a Netflix, you click, you have a movie which you believe is one of those best because by the nature you believe they know what is the best. But I think that, for example, the programs like Netflix, I would have never given a fiction movie to them because this is, I think, like being one of those who kill cinemas. Netflix is a perfect platform to show how life of people is dramatic, funny, but exactly so outsourced from something that happened and somebody went with camera and mixed up and make a document that could start from the end of the story, it could start from the beginning of the story, but it was just happening in the life. That's why I was very happy when our film Mujica was shown in this program, but if I had a fiction, I wouldn't give up on this. And this is what, to me, as a filmmaker, how it separates, you know, but I cannot change the flow of history. If this fucking COVID will continue, you cannot wave and you cannot bring people to be killed. But anyway, the future is unknown. But in the known existence, what we have today, I would say that, number one, platforms are beautiful because you enrich the world with something one side of planet doesn't know about the other. But when you make your fiction, I would be sticking to the idea that a group is always or the audience that is all together is always much better going through the catharsis of fiction than without. I go, when I read, because I read quite a lot of books, I prefer today to read the books than to watch movies. Mm-hmm. Because the field of non-fiction is much richer today. You don't need money, you don't need ideology, you don't need to be channelized brain in order to produce what you need to produce. So today we are exposed to huge number, proliferation of books, and you make your own vision of the movie based on the book that you loved. And I think that's what is good on our time. You could choose. You cannot change. The change is in the hands of elite and the rich, and they're giving us pieces of bread to bite. But you have a great opportunity to be oriented on nonfiction. That's why nonfiction is good. It's the time of Christianity, when apostles were in fact writing metaphors, and people are not buying, but people were listening and reading. And I think the best authors were always apostles of nonfiction. That's why I prefer today to read the good books, good nonfiction, because it's much better selected as a free expression. Film must go through the stages of approval. Film could be channelized, could be stopped. Documentary less than the feature film. But feature film, it becomes, as far as we go today with the speed, modernization, technology, it goes, I think, out of, easily it goes out of authors' hands. But non-fiction is protected. By who? By the writer. And the propaganda, it doesn't care about books. Not all. They do also books for propaganda, but they don't care because it's easy to marginalize. You don't print as many as you want, and then you could just have a small audience. The question was always fiction or non-fiction, how big audience, and what do you show in a prime time? Even, you know, and then it stops to be as interesting as we believe. Either it's fiction or non-fiction. I'm talking too much because I'm getting older, so stop me.
We love it. We're very, it's fascinating.
That's the idea. With Diana, we said, let's ask whatever it comes to our mind, so he talks. That's what we wanted. Emir, you were talking about editing, and you were talking about also how when you think on fiction, you think on a group of people all together, and how to impact that audience that is all together. But and I was thinking that when we do a movie and when we are going through the editing process, there is a time when you need to see the movie with someone else in order to realize what is how it is really working. It's not, it's something you cannot, a vision you cannot complete by yourself. And so for that, there is something like a state of mind, no, or something psychic that changes when we see something with other people together. It's not just the experience of the theater and the atmosphere, but something that really happens in the way we see.
You know, when I was speaking to Paolo Sorrentino, 2 years ago here, and I was telling him all these problems. And I've seen that the younger generation, he's already not as young as very young, but he told me, I don't care how people see my movies. And this is the great difference. People who create movies today, they just easily switch to whatever form or platform. But for my taste, I'd like to modernize myself too, to adapt myself to what it should be the future. But you know what? Once you read, you have a great image, and the impulses in your brain start bringing you one after the other, if it's the inspiring literature. In modern cinema, I would say today, good movies are those who are socially relevant. Movies who are just diving into something that is as important as people feel altogether. And that's why the media there is today, I would say platforms and all of this, they are very good, because they create what is important on the stage. They create the life as a stage, and we adapt ourselves to what is important, what is not. If you look back the most successful films in the last 10 years, there is no one that is not socially relevant. And think socially relevant cinema is also making impact on the socially relevant fiction. And we are speaking today about a cycle in which, you know, when I was watching, my grandson is doing photos with his Leica camera. And I was watching the photos made on the iPhone. iPhone had beaten absolutely in the optical world. But what happens with iPhone? People are more and more self-pity, which means they are losing the power. They're losing the natural power with calcium, minerals, and all what you need to have to expose. And they are just taking selfies, billions of selfies. So they never get Rembrandt's picture. They might get it, but they don't even know what means and how does it look when the ray of light is coming from one side and doing it like in Sven Nykvist's films or Bergman films, in which half of the face is seen, half is not. So we are speaking here about two different positions. One is non-fiction, in which we enjoy because we create a movie in our head, and the other one is across with the billions of small networks that are good image, making good image accessible to anybody. So what I want to say, in fact, is that, you know, approval of technology did not divert human mind from social relevance of cinema, whatever it is today, or fiction or non-fiction. What is the worst is this reality shows, which are just creating people as a pigs being put together and just trying to exhaust from them the worst. So let's believe that the fiction will help non-fiction, and ultimately it is a reality show, to correct in the future when people exhaust their need to act like a pigs. And let's hope that the quality of iPhone will not be serving mostly this kind of healing ourselves with the billions of self-portraits which are not beautiful, but mostly, or in the end, people are not very happy with. And they're doing it again, and losing the sense of reality that non-fiction is just creating. So human face is becoming an object which is, instead of being celebrated as a human expression, is becoming a fake, corrected, a cosmetically made, and even time-wise. I watched the other day, how can you create the image of you in, how will you look in 20 years? But this was the very scary one. It was very popular 1 year ago, and apparently it disappeared because people don't like to see themselves in the future when they get quite old.
For sure.
Yeah. So what you're saying, I think that's a really important point, because we conceive the world through images, right? So if you have these ridiculous, grotesque images that we're seeing, like with like this distortion of reality, that's going to affect how you see the world and the sort of cinema the sort of, not just cinema, but what you produce, and be it literature, be it cinema. So I think that's a point that really, really resonates with me, Emir. I do want to...
Let me just tell you, you gave me an idea. The secret is the term that we have to operate with. If the other day, the Pope allegedly, in his Instagram, or somebody liked the one of the posts of a very, I would say, a pornographic woman. We are losing the world of secrets. The world is so open. We were insisting on transparency for the social life, but this didn't help us. So secret is the word that we cannot demystify all what is making the human life in both reality and fiction. I insist on the secrets. Otherwise, we are going to stay all inside the reality show.
Yeah, but those aren't really, like, that's not real though. I know what you're saying. I agree that we shouldn't perform our lives on screen, right? But it's performative. It's not even real. Like it's like, it's true, but also you only show the best parts, right? When people show themselves on screen, they don't show their real selves. They show this idealized version of themselves. So I think that it's not. I mean, I totally understand where you're going, but I think it's a bit more than that, because it's. I think saying that we're showing all our secrets is not. It's beyond that. We're like showing who we wish we were, or who we want people to see, and that's even worse, because those are realities you can never achieve.
No, when I say a secret, I believe it's not a question of creating secret society.
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm speaking about a need of demythologizing everything. Yeah. A human being cannot live without mythology. And even instant mythologies today are making of a human life. So what I'm trying to say, let us stay in the safe zone of joy of not knowing everything. And if not like this, Shakespeare would have been never as big as he is, because he knew what to show, not what to show. The tendency today is to show everything possible. You know, there was a pandemic event in one of the stadiums covered, and there are probably 300 people separated into the beds. And there was one of the medical people who had taken a picture of a girl who was undressing before he was getting therapy. And her image, the breasts of the woman, like pornography, instantly had beaten a reality of a sick woman. And everybody was sharing because the breasts were big, and everybody was sharing and participating in this. This is what I'm saying. But this is very difficult today. Too many cameras and too far from the truth. And in the post-truth period, we are all becoming kind of victims of not knowing what is the truth, but even knowing that the question is not what is the truth. The question is how you explain what you want to explain.
Emir, you were talking about, you mentioned platforms many times during this conversation, and you spoke also about some advantages of having that offer. Do you think there is a way to also to help people to get connected through the storytelling, and also you also talked about pandemic, but you mentioned it that regarding the possibility to attend cinema theaters, venues, but there is also an obstacle to produce movies. Diana, who programs a film festival, is probably dealing with the challenging task of selecting films in a time where movies are not being produced. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, in that sense, what do you think is going to happen with this kind of
you know what? I think pandemic, whatever they call it, this is something that does not exist. I think it's a fake political idea that is just restructuring the world. But this is my opinion, and this does not have to. I'm not pledging to be a politician, but I see it. It's a big swindle. Biggest historical swindle on our time is the story about Corona, because we had many Coronas before. And if you compare in the small countries, for you it's more difficult, but probably if you put statistics, how people died last year from pneumonia and how much more are going to die today, this is not a big difference. So that's why I'm saying platforms, because restructuring the world is modernizing the world, no matter if it's caused by what I call pandemic, or it takes another 20 years to get used to receive the movie and the documentary from the platform. I think the world is bigger and bigger, many people, and those who govern this financing world, they are just calculating, among other things, how to make what I call, and I hate this word, but I have to say, sustainable economy in the world that is absolutely not sustainable. But the platforms are the future. And this way of making conversation is also future. Because no matter what will happen in 1 year, who will tell you that you're not going to be scared of another, which is going to happen, but the scale depends on those who create the people's mind. In statistics, it doesn't exist. It exists in the very small scale. But look at us. They are all scared, and we are all grouped in Zoom, who is becoming a billionaire in the meantime, like Jeff Bezos and the others, because technology and the new tools are always making new times.
And what do you think is going to happen with this void of production, of cinema production? Do you think that after this, we will recover the state of...
They're going to look for the safe way to do it, you know. I don't know how much it affects Hollywood, but probably not that much as we think, because Hollywood is in decline, and idealistically, Hollywood was a center of the world, and I don't think it has a power, but the power will be switched to one of those platforms, I think, because it's less money, it's more, I'm very pessimistic in this because, you know, look at Sweden. Sweden doesn't have any restrictions. And they have no more people dying than in let's say, not Denmark, but let's say in Germany. So we are living a time that is very dangerous, not just because of the virus. I'm not saying that virus is not deadly, but I'm just saying that people are getting into the squeezed channel and the tunnel in which the fear is operating with our feelings, like getting in a good horror film.
Mhm.
So the future, nobody could predict. Future is unknown. But what we know today is that we could always operate on any platform, any way we could express ourselves if we have ideas that, as I said before, socially relevant, psychologically, existentially, historically, however.
Right, but regardless, it's a disruption, right? It's a disruption to so many things, and there might be something interesting that could come of that disruption in cinema production. I don't know. No.
I don't know. But you know, for example, I know in Serbia, what I was speaking about before about non-fiction. Proliferation is a characteristic of all fiction and non-fiction. The number of movies, the number of TV series, this is a huge number in which it's very difficult to find a good place in cinema for the best possible movie we know. Because the most successful movie for the last 20 years is usually not the best one.
Yes.
These two elements are just divided in the time when we were, in fact, improving technology, believing in technology, but losing a lot of elements, and this loss is very visible in the proliferation, in the outnumber of billions of things, among which the language even in cinema has been changed under the influence of commercials. Look at the YouTube. YouTube is a perfect platform. You could spend your life imitating Chaplin or trying to be funny, but you will never have funny things that you could collect on YouTube. But YouTube, every single interesting document that you could see is interrupted, the same like television, by commercials. And commercials are just getting, you know, the quickness of exchange of the shots in successful Hollywood movie and in the commercial is absolutely the same. Mm-hmm. So the style is just matching because of people who are spending time watching television when they go to cinema. If cinema, they want to see something so quick and so efficient. The cinema, author cinema, which takes long and which whose perception of time is very personal, has no fucking chance to go through enough to create a mind of people as much as those commercials and those movies are doing. So like this, thinking this way, I'm even on the side of those who believe that we have to see more documentaries. Right. But never forget documentaries, if you take an event, tragic, funny, whatever, you have to make an order. And that moment, somehow, as Godard was saying, when you put your order, it becomes partly fiction.
Here I found the title that I didn't remember of your second biography. Why Did I Need This was the title. Yeah. And as I was hearing you and hearing that you feel pessimist, etc.
No, I'm not pessimist. I'm just realist.
Okay.
I'm non-fiction in trying to review and to expose my distance from the world today, or my vision.
Do you remember in the end of your first biography, in where am I in this story that was first known as that is an unverified rumor. I didn't know that.
This is the original, yeah.
Yes. By the end of the text of the book, you tell a moment of your life where you were in bed, simulating to be asleep, while you were hearing a story of something that your father was discussing with a friend, and the world outside was falling down or something, but you were very focused on the Titanic, on a piece
of the boat that I did for school. Yeah.
For you on your boat, yes. And I think on that, and I think on what on the way you portray parenthood in general in your movies, and since of course when father was away on business, but I also think on Marco when he loses his son down the water and starts to look for him unsuccessfully. And there is this feeling of different scales, no? I mean, for the tragedy or for the drama or the human drama. I mean, that child who listened to his father talking about something which is an historical mess for him, and the son focusing. And Marco, and in the fiction and in a poetic way in Underground, and Marco in front of facing the death of or the loss of his son, and how you suddenly transform that into something which is not sad at all, because the moment is very hard, but all of a sudden it evolves into something very ayúdame Diana, como no es reconfortante, but sanador.
Like healing? It's a healing process?
Yeah. You know, when I was doing all these films, I have been always from the beginning trying to justify everybody. Because when you are judgmental in cinema, you are part of the official morality and ethics, which are not good for the art. And as much as I was progressing, I must say that, or let's say going forward, I must say that I was in some films and even in non-fiction, I was always trying to separate or liberate from myself two elements which are always contrasting each other. And that's why, but this is also coming from the mentality of people here. Mm-hmm. You know, they could kiss you, but they could kill you. Mm-hmm. When they kiss you, they might have, I think you have it in Argentina very similar, but you're much more serenadic. Here people are much more exposed to, not to oppression, but also to each other senseless revenges, and this kind of catharsic world was always connected in possible in one seed of the cause of a human life. And when you mention these movies, especially in the second phase, you know, I was also trying to be in tune with the audience around the world, because as much as I was going forward with films, more and more they were watched all over the world in the same scale of authors. And I just wanted to adapt myself. For example, when I was doing Underground, I was thinking about Dante. I was thinking about the great authors. How would they react if they have been living today in the scale in which you could show, you know? And fortunately, I was having something that is extremely modern today. This film is based on a very anecdotal event. two people keeping other people underground, and they tell them the war never stopped. And like this, you have enormous field of possibilities of creating poetry contrasted to the harshness of life, and something that you could take even as a document. And this film, I think, has one point. People are living underground, not knowing what's going on outside. Once, accidentally, they come out, the first thing they see is people who are making fictionary movie about Nazis occupying Serbia in World War II. The son who had learned the lesson in underground, he doesn't know anything about 50 years that passed, or let's say 25, half of that, quarter of the century. So first thing when they get out into reality, they see fiction. What they do, they kill people, which is today good parameter to understand how much we are making all these tubes, all these billions of stupid material that is attacking people, how much we create and how much pressure we put in their brains. And when they have to get into the life, they prefer to go to the stadium to simulate the war as a fans who are just ready to die. I think underground was a good marking point for what we are speaking about, because it's really something. What is the fiction you create, making people believe it's reality, but in fact is fiction? But from their perspective is reality. Mm-hmm. So changing the angle, you come to the point when they get outside, first thing they see, this is my decision, certainly. The first thing they see, shooting a movie. And they shoot people in the German uniforms or Wehrmacht uniforms because they believe, because they were ideologically taught, because they are close, and they kill them. This is quite a good metaphor for the festival, I think.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is indeed. Yes. Yes. Emir, let's...
Listen, we are speaking about 45 minutes now, no?
I know.
Yes?
So it's time to wrap up, but this is so fascinating. Emir, I think your comments on editing and their importance in cinema, be it just in how they shape the way we interpret it, have been really especially enlightening for me. I think it's just, I was feeling a little depressed because I was feeling really optimistic.
No. But you could everything what humans could operate with, it could be used in the best possible way. But once you let it go, then it could be dangerous. And what I'm trying to say is, from my perspective, I'm 65 years old and I'm back to the land. I'm having my 30 cows and I'm planting a lot of good plantations. And I'm reading a lot of books and my brain is just light because I could create billions of images thanks to the books that I'm just taking one after the other. I'm writing two. One is about my friend who was a Nobel Prize last year, Peter Handke, and the other one is called Punishment Without Crime, which is a reference to Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment. And we have to be optimistic, but we have to get this knowledge being engaged. You put 3 shots one way or another, you are creating your own vision. It stops to be a pure reality. Even, except reality shows which are created and made to make people believe it's not bad to be observed 24 hours. And these are fucking bastards. These are really bastards. These are degrading the image of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
For whose sake, I don't know. But these are really bastards. But, we have easy access to many expressions that we have never had before. We could access so many good films. We are creating festival too. And each year I'm having at least 20 fantastic documentaries and the fiction movies. But we have to be very careful. Creating one way or another, putting one order of the shots or not the other. We are interfering into reality, and we are transferring non-fiction into fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And the importance of like the staccato shots that you were talking about that we take from commercials, just how important it is not
because
to allow.
They like to be liked. They want to be seen. They want to be observed. And they just follow the trends. And trend is a recipient eye. What recipient eye wants to see? He wants to see not just rationally, but he feels that the speed of commercials is something that is part of his optical world. This is also not good for us because the speed of commercials is not the speed of a deep-going human drama.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm very happy that I could have expressed myself to my Argentinian friends. And I'm very happy that
Really looking forward to welcome you here in Argentina very soon.
as soon as it will be possible. I miss your warmth, your people, your I would say closeness to each other. But let's hope that COVID will be not replaced, but deadlier one, but less deadly, and we are going to get used to.
Okay. I mean, it feels like a real huge responsibility to be having this conversation with you, because I think on all the people listening and wanting to ask you more questions about everything you're exposing, because it's really so deep and interesting. And we thank you very much for being here with us. I don't know, Diana, if you want to make a last question or wrap.
No, I think this was wonderful and enlightening, and yeah, I feel energized after this conversation. So thank you, Matías, for inviting me, and thank you, Emir, for chatting with us.
All the best to all of you.